Blasian wife texted her mom. He broke my arm. Sent to the wrong number. Korean Mafia boss replied. Stay quiet. Help is on the way. I couldn't stop shaking. Every breath sent hot knives through my ribs, but it was nothing compared to the sickening angle of my right arm. Broken. Definitely broken. The bathroom tile was cold against my legs as I huddled against the tub, trying to make myself smaller, trying to disappear. The pounding on the door matched the throbbing in my skull. Kiana, open this door. Don't make me do this. My husband's voice was a weapon I'd learned to fear years ago. But right now, locked in this bathroom with a shattered arm and my phone clutched in my good hand, fear had evolved into something sharper. Survival. I typed the message to my mom with my vision swimming, fingers slipping on the glass. He broke my arm. I'm locked in the bathroom. Please come. I didn't even check the contact. Just hit send and prayed. The reply came in seconds, but it wasn't from my mom. Unknown number. Stay quiet. Help is on the way. My stomach lurched. Wrong number. Of course it was the wrong number. Of all the times to mess up, when Damien's fist was splintering the door frame, when my arm was bent at an angle that made me want to scream, it had to be now. I should delete it. I should unlock the door and face whatever comes next. That's what I've always done. That's what has kept me alive this long. Compliance, appeasement, the calculation that small surrenders might prevent large ones. But my arm was broken. And something inside me, something small and stubborn that I thought Damien had beaten out of me years ago, refused to go quiet. Unknown number. Who is this? My hands trembled as I typed back. I'm sorry, wrong number. Please ignore. The response came faster this time. Unknown number. You're not sorry. You're scared. Tell me what's happening. Something in those words cut through the fog of pain and panic. Not my mother's warmth, but something steadier. Something that sounded like someone who knew how to handle a crisis. My fingers moved before my mind caught up. My husband. He's angry. Really angry. I locked myself in the bathroom. My arm, it's broken, I think. I don't know what to do. Outside, Damien's voice changed texture. The anger melted away, replaced by something worse. That honeyed tone he used when he was trying to manipulate me back into compliance. Baby, come on. I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean to. You know how you get sometimes. You provoke me. Just open the door and we can talk about this like adults. I felt the familiar pull of his charm even now, even with my arm shattered. That was the thing about Damien, he could make you believe that somehow his violence was your fault. Unknown number, good. Kiana, listen to me. You're going to survive this. But right now, I need you to do exactly what I say. There was a certainty in those words that steadied me. Maybe it was delusion. Maybe this stranger was a predator who saw an opportunity. But right now, locked in a bathroom with a broken arm while my husband tried to break down the door, I had nothing left to lose. Okay. Unknown number. Don't answer him. Not yet. I'm calling people. Stay on the line. Keep texting me. For the next 20 minutes, I became a spy in my own home. I counted Damien's footsteps. I reported when he went to the kitchen, when he paced back to the door. I told this stranger when Damien's voice got louder, when he tried to sweet-talk me again. Each message I sent felt like a small act of rebellion. Like I was handing pieces of control to someone outside the walls that had contained me for so long. Unknown number. You're doing great. I'm 10 minutes away. When you hear me come through the door, don't come out. Stay in the bathroom. Lock it again. Whatever happens, don't come out until I come and get you. Do you understand? What are you going to do? Unknown number, my job. Stay quiet. I'm coming. I set the phone down and waited. The pain in my arm hadn't dulled. My heart was still hammering against my ribs. But for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting alone. Damien was at the door again. This time with a different energy. He'd been drinking. I could smell the beer from where I sat. Alcohol made him either sloppier or meaner, and tonight he was mean. You're calling someone, aren't you? His voice was low and dangerous. Is it your mother? Is it some guy? Jesus, Kiana. You know what happens when you embarrass me like this. I didn't answer. My phone buzzed. Unknown number, he's pacing. Tell me about the apartment. How many exits? Front door, back door off the kitchen, balcony in the bedroom, but we're on the third floor. Living room, kitchen, hallway, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. Unknown number. Where are you right now? Master bathroom. Next to the bedroom. Unknown number. Good. If anything changes, tell me immediately. The phone buzzed again and my chest tightened. A text from Damien's phone. He was texting me from outside the bathroom door, which meant he was standing right there. Kiana, I know you're in there. This is crazy. We can fix this. I love you. You know I do. I'd heard these words 1,000 times. After the first broken plate. After the first time he grabbed my arm hard enough to leave marks. After the first time he shoved me into a wall. I love you. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. You made me do it. But this time something was different. This time I didn't believe him. Or maybe for the first time I believed that love and violence didn't have to be exclusive, and that I deserved to survive both without letting them define me. I typed back to the stranger, he says he loves me. He says we can fix this. Unknown number. You already know you can't. Don't answer him. How's your pain level? Bad. Really bad. Unknown number. I know. Help is coming. Focus on breathing. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Can you do that? I did. The breathing helped. Or maybe it was just knowing that someone was paying attention. Damien tried the doorknob again. It was locked, but the lock was old, flimsy. He could break through if he really wanted to, and we both knew it. The question had always been, when would anger become something worse than anger? If you don't open this door in 5 seconds, I'm breaking it down, he said. I counted. 1, 2, 3. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Police won't make it in time. I will. Don't open that door. 4, 5. He hit the door. Not with a fist this time, but with his shoulder. The frame creaked. There was a sound like wood splintering. I pressed my back against the bathtub, my broken arm cradled against my chest. I was shaking so hard my teeth chattered. I could hear him breathing on the other side of the door, frustrated, furious. And I realized with a strange clarity, frightened. Damien was afraid she was actually leaving. That someone else was coming for her. That his control was slipping. That fear made him twice as dangerous. He hit the door again. And again. I sent a message with shaking hands. He's breaking the door down. He's going to get in. Please, please hurry. Unknown number. Stay down. Cover your head. When they come through, don't move until I tell you to. The word they registered. Plural. Not just Jason. A team. An organization. I realized in that moment that I had no idea who I'd been texting. For all I knew, I'd made a terrible mistake. But there was no time to second guess now. Damien's next hit cracked the door. Light spilled through the break. I could see his face, flushed, furious, desperate. He saw me huddled by the tub, and his expression shifted into something almost predatory. Then from somewhere in the apartment came a sound that made everything stop. The front door exploding inward. Footsteps. Multiple sets. Fast. Controlled. Damien spun away from the bathroom door. His voice suddenly uncertain. Who the hell? I heard a voice, calm and measured, cutting through the chaos like a knife through silk. Damien Carter? It wasn't a question. In a downtown office that overlooked the city, Jason Park sat in a leather chair during what was supposed to be a routine business meeting. He was barely listening to the men across the table drone on about shipping routes and import taxes. His phone vibrated against the mahogany desk. An unknown number. A woman's name he didn't recognize. A message that made him stop pretending to pay attention. He broke my arm. I'm locked in a bathroom. Please help me. Jason's fingers paused over his phone. In his line of work, he didn't have the luxury of sentiment. He didn't rescue people. He didn't play hero. He didn't respond to random texts from desperate strangers. But something about the message hit different. Maybe it was the specificity. Not he hit me or he's angry, but he broke my arm. The clinical precision of it, paired with the underlying desperation. Maybe it was something else. A memory he didn't like to revisit. A face he saw in every scared woman he passed on the street. His sister's face. Jason's jaw clenched. He stood up, not bothering with excuses. Get out, he said to the men at the table. Mr. Park, we haven't finished. Out. They filed out quickly, practiced in the art of obeying Jason Park without question. When the door closed, he pulled up the conversation on his phone and began typing. Jason Park. Who is this? The response came quickly, fragmentary, desperate. Kiana gave him just enough to understand. Husband, broken arm, locked in bathroom, terrified. She asked for help but didn't demand it. There was a politeness to her desperation that broke something in his chest. Jason pulled up a secure line and dialed Minjun, his operations manager. I need a team at an address. Domestic situation. I'm sending coordinates now, he said without preamble. I want medical on standby. And Minjun? I don't care what it takes. You get there before he does any more damage. Understood, sir. ETA. 12 minutes. Make it 8. Jason hung up and fired off a text to Kiana. My name is Jason. I need you to stay very calm. As he read her responses, about the broken arm, the fear, the small rebellion of documenting his abuse, Jason felt something dangerous crystallize inside him. This woman, whose name he didn't know and whose face he'd never seen, had just become his singular focus. He was always good at compartmentalizing. Mafia boss by night, something almost human by day, or maybe it was the other way around. But right now there was no separation. Kiana's fear and his rage were the same thing. I need details about the apartment, he texted. Everything. Layout, exits, how many people live there. She told him. Through her fragmentary messages, a picture emerged. 3rd floor. 2 exits. 1 man inside, angry, increasingly volatile. And Kiana, alone and injured, waiting for salvation from a stranger she met through a wrong number. When Jason's team checked in, he was already en route himself, driving through the city in a way that would get anyone else arrested. His hands were steady on the wheel, his mind already mapping the situation, calculating responses, determining outcomes. He'd done this before. Not the rescue, he didn't rescue people. But he'd done the kind of violence that needed to happen when a man refused to let go of his prey. The difference was, this time he wasn't going to feel the usual emptiness afterward. Jason arrived to find his team already in position. Minjun met him at the apartment building's back entrance, tablet in hand. Subject is still inside, Minjun reported. Audio feed confirms victim in master bathroom. Male subject attempting to force entry. 2 minutes ago he hit the door. Last impact was 30 seconds ago. Is she hurt? Verbal confirmation of broken arm. Pain level high but stable. She's maintaining communication via text. Jason nodded once. His mind had already mapped the space, calculated the angles, decided on the cleanest approach. Ruthlessness with precision. That had always been his way. Go, he said. What happened next took 90 seconds. The front door burst inward. Jason's team moved through the apartment like water, efficient and unstoppable. Damien, caught between the broken bathroom door and the suddenly violated sanctity of his home, had maybe 2 seconds of confusion before Jason appeared in front of him. And Damien, for all his rage and control at home, was nothing. A man who preyed on the weak. A coward without an audience of one. Damien Carter? Jason's voice was soft, almost conversational. You've been expecting me. From the bathroom I heard the commotion. I heard Damien's voice rise in sudden fear. I heard other men moving through the apartment, my prison, with a kind of efficient purpose that suggested they'd done this before. Then silence. Then a knock on the bathroom door. Gentle. Careful. Kiana? My name is Jason Park. I'm here to help you. Can you open the door? I did slowly and saw a man I'd never forget. Korean, tall, with dark eyes that took in my broken arm and pale face with a kind of careful assessment. Behind him I could see another man, also Korean, standing by the bedroom entrance. And beyond that, Damien, restrained by 2 more men I didn't know existed 5 minutes ago. Jason extended his hand. Not commanding. Not demanding. Just offering. Come with me, he said. You're safe now. The paramedics arrived 8 minutes after Jason's team secured the apartment. They worked with practiced efficiency, carefully examining my broken arm, confirming the fracture, preparing me for transport. But they weren't regular paramedics. They moved with the same quiet competence as the men who broke through the door, and I realized that Jason had his people everywhere. Everything about what happened next was both dreamlike and crystalline in my memory. I was wheeled out of the apartment on a stretcher, my eyes never quite landing on Damien as the men hauled him toward the back stairwell. He was shouting something about calling the police, about how I attacked him first, about how this was all a misunderstanding. The lies came so easily, shaped by years of practice. Jason walked beside my stretcher. He didn't touch me, but his presence was anchoring in a way I didn't understand. "Medical team is waiting at a private clinic," he said quietly. "They'll set your arm properly, manage the pain. You won't see Damien again tonight. Or tomorrow. Or ever if that's what you want." The finality of it should have comforted me. Instead, it terrified me. The clinic was nothing like a hospital. It was private, discreet, located in a building I would never have noticed if I'd passed it 100 times. The doctor who treated me was an older Korean woman with capable hands and kind eyes that suggested she'd handled situations like this before. "Hairline fracture of the humerus," Dr. Kim announced, studying the x-rays. "Painful but treatable. You're fortunate it wasn't worse." "You're very fortunate, actually." I didn't feel fortunate. I felt untethered, like the ground beneath my reality had shifted and I wasn't sure where I'd land. The arm was set in a splint and sling. Dr. Kim prescribed pain medication and handed me a card. "My personal number is on the back," she said. "If you need anything, physical therapy, follow-ups, just someone to talk to, call me. Jason is one of my oldest patients. You're in good hands." The implication hung in the air. Jason takes care of his people. When the examination was finished, Jason was waiting in the hallway. He changed out of his expensive suit into dark jeans and a black t-shirt, and he looked somehow more dangerous this way, more real, less corporate. His tie was gone. The veneer of normalcy had been stripped away. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Like I'm having a very vivid nightmare," I said. The medication was making me slightly loopy, slightly honest. "Are you going to kill him?" Jason's expression didn't change. "Damien is a problem that needs to be solved, but not in the way you think. Not yet." There was something almost compassionate in how he didn't lie to me. Other men would offer false reassurance. Jason just stated facts. "I don't even know who you are," I whispered. "I know. That's going to make things more complicated." He gestured toward the exit. "Come on. You need somewhere safe to stay tonight." The safe house was actually beautiful. A modern loft in a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows with the glass treated so no one could see in. It was decorated with careful attention to comfort. Soft furniture, good lighting, a kitchen that had been stocked with food. It looked like someone's home, except it didn't. It looked like a place designed for people who needed to disappear. Jason showed me to a bedroom with its own ensuite bathroom. Clean clothes had been laid out. My size, apparently someone was as prepared as I was beginning to understand Jason always was. "Rest," he said. "I'll have someone bring you food when you're ready. If you need anything, there's an intercom on the nightstand." "What about Damien?" I asked. "What are you doing to him?" "That's not your concern anymore." "But, Kiana." Jason turned back to face me fully. "You just survived a man breaking your arm. You're in shock. You're in pain. And you're still worried about him. That tells me something about what you've been trained to care about. We're going to change that." There was a gentleness to the statement that broke something inside me. I sank onto the bed and started crying, not soft, dainty tears, but the kind of crying that comes from deep inside, the kind that comes when you finally believe you might survive. Jason didn't comfort me. He just stood there, letting me fall apart. And somehow that was exactly what I needed. Over the next 3 days, I learned that Jason Park owns half the city and controls the other half. That he has legitimate businesses, import, export, real estate, restaurants, but also less legitimate ones that I learned not to ask about. That he has lawyers on speed dial and cops who owe him favors. That when he decides to handle a problem, the problem gets handled. What I didn't learn was whether he was planning to kill my husband. Damien surfaced on day 2 in a holding cell, picked up by police after a domestic violence report. Jason's lawyers were brilliant. They'd compiled medical records dating back years, photographs of every injury, a paper trail of the small savings account I didn't know he knew about. The evidence was airtight. When I saw the police report, I felt something like relief. And then guilt for feeling relief. And then anger at feeling guilty for feeling relief. It was exhausting, this emotional calculus of trauma. Jason brought me files to review. These are your divorce papers, initiated by my lawyers using evidence you gathered yourself. Here's the protection order. Here's a settlement offer. He loses the apartment, half his assets go to you, and he's required to stay 500 yards away from you at all times, or he goes to prison. I read through the papers with hands that shook slightly. It was all there, my escape, neatly packaged and legally binding. Why are you doing this? I asked. Jason sat across from me. He was always sitting at a distance, I noticed. Never standing over me. Never blocking exits. It was a small courtesy that I was beginning to understand was intentional. Because you deserve to be free, he said simply. That's not a real reason. People don't just. I gestured vaguely, encompassing everything. Help strangers because they deserve it. There's always a cost. There will be, eventually. But not with me, not like you're thinking. I'm not going to hurt you, Kiana. That's not what this is. I wanted to believe him. That was the truly terrifying part. I wanted to believe him so badly that I was afraid I'd believe him anyway, whether it was true or not. On the fourth day, I insisted on going to get my things from the apartment. Jason wanted to send people, men who would pack my belongings and bring them to me. But I refused. It had to be me. I had to face the space I shared with Damien and reclaim it as mine. We went together, Jason and I, with two of his men waiting in the hallway outside. The apartment was clean, almost aggressively so. It took me a moment to realize that Jason's people had been through it, cleared out anything Damien might have used to hurt me, secured anything that mattered. Walking through the space was surreal. The couch where he held me down. The kitchen where he threw a plate that cut my shoulder. The bedroom where I learned to be very still and very quiet. Jason followed me through it all, saying nothing, just bearing witness. In the bedroom closet I found my art supplies, sketch pads, charcoal, oils, acrylics, all organized and untouched. I knelt down and started pulling boxes toward me, suddenly desperate to get these pieces of myself out of this space. I was an artist, I said quietly. Before I met him, I wanted to be an art therapist. I had applications pending at 3 universities. What happened? Jason asked. He said art was frivolous. That if I wanted to contribute to the household, I needed a real job. He said my dream was selfish. I laughed bitterly. I was so in love with him that I believed it. Jason crouched down beside me. You can apply again. With what time? I work a job I hate just to have some money he doesn't know about. I spend my time managing him, his moods, his schedule. I'm terrified all the time. Not anymore, Jason said. You're not going back to that job. You're not going back to anything you don't choose. Because you said so? There was an edge to my voice. Something sharp and broken rising to the surface. Because now I just belong to someone different? Jason stood up slowly. When he looked at me, his expression was unreadable. You don't belong to anyone, Kiana. Not Damien. Not me. Not anymore. But his words didn't match the reality of the situation, and we both knew it. I was in his safe house. I was alive because of him. I was divorcing my husband because of his lawyers. The fact that he hadn't demanded anything in return didn't erase the fundamental truth. I was dependent on him now. That night, alone in the safe house, I had a panic attack. It started small. A tightness in my chest, difficulty breathing. I'd had them before, always alone in a bathroom, always afraid that Damien would hear and use it against me. But this time I reached for the intercom without thinking. I need help, I gasped into it. Jason appeared in my room 5 minutes later with a glass of water, and a calm presence that somehow made the panic recede. What are you afraid of? He asked, sitting at the foot of my bed. Everything, I said. I'm afraid of you. I'm afraid of myself. I'm afraid that I'm just going to end up in the same situation with someone else. I'm afraid that I can't live alone. I'm afraid that. I stopped, my voice breaking. I'm afraid that I'm so broken that this is all I deserve. Jason was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, more human. My sister was married to a man like Damien, he said. Worse, actually. She left him 14 times. 14 times she gathered her courage and her things and walked out. And 14 times he found her, talked her into coming back, promised he'd change. The 15th time she didn't leave. She tried to fight back. He killed her. I stared at him. That was a long time ago, Jason continued. Long enough for me to have spent years becoming someone who could make sure it never happened to anyone else. So when you text a wrong number and I see someone asking for help, I answer. Not because you owe me anything. Because I failed my sister. I won't fail you. The honesty of it was both comforting and terrifying. He wasn't a savior. He was a man shaped by failure and anger, trying to write a different ending onto someone else's story. What do you want from me? I whispered. Nothing yet. Maybe nothing ever. But eventually, Kiana, you're going to have to choose whether you want to be in my life and what that looks like. And I promise you, when that moment comes, it will be your choice. Not because I'm a good man, I'm not. But because I've seen what happens when people like us don't get to choose. I won't do that to you. He left, closing the door quietly behind him. I lay in the dark and realized that for the first time in years, I was afraid of something other than immediate harm. I was afraid of possibility. I was afraid that Jason might actually mean what he was saying. And I was afraid of what that might cost me, because everything costs something. Damien's first move was to bail out on the assault charge and immediately file his own complaint against me for assault and false allegations. His lawyer was good, expensive and good, and for a moment my hope wavered. Then Jason made one phone call. The charges were dropped within hours. Damien's lawyer, it turned out, had some very serious problems in his professional past that had suddenly come to the attention of the Bar Association. The timing was impeccable. The message was crystal clear. Jason didn't hide this from me. He laid out exactly what he'd done and why, with a calmness that suggested he'd done this before, made problems disappear through careful application of leverage and information. Is that legal? I asked. No, Jason said. But it was effective. Why do you even need to tell me? Because secrets breed resentment. And because you deserve to understand what you're accepting when you stay here. Over the next few weeks, I settled into an uneasy routine. I was given a study to work in, and to my surprise, Jason had furnished it like an artist's studio. Easels, canvases, every art supply I could possibly need. I started painting and drawing again, slowly at first, then with more confidence. And slowly, I began to see the differences between Damien's control and Jason's. Damien demanded I account for my time. Jason asked if I wanted company but never objected to me wanting to be alone. Damien criticized my art. Jason asked genuine questions about my work. Damien monitored my phone and my money. Jason gave me a credit card with no limit and never asked me to explain a single purchase. But the most important difference was this. Damien made me afraid. Jason didn't. It was subtle, but it changed everything. On a Friday night, 6 weeks after the wrong number text, I came down from my studio to find Jason in the kitchen making dinner. It had become a routine. We talked, and for a few hours the weight of everything lifted slightly. I got a call today, I said, watching him chop vegetables with practiced efficiency. From a community center. They have an internship opening, helping run an art therapy program for abuse survivors. They want me to apply. Jason paused. How do you feel about that? Terrified. Excited. Like I'm being disloyal to being here, helping you. You're not here to help me, Kiana. You're here to heal. But I can't just, you've paid for everything. The medical bills, the lawyers, the apartment. And I would do all of that again, Jason interrupted, meeting my eyes. Not because I expect anything in return, but because I believe in second chances. And because I believe in you. There were tears in my eyes when I hugged him. Just as a thank you. Nothing more. But I felt him stiffen slightly, as if he wasn't quite sure how to hold me. It made him more human somehow. More fallible. The next morning Damien surfaced again. Not physically but legally. His lawyer filed for custody of our non-existent children, and claimed I had been unfaithful and unfit. It was desperate, absurd, obviously made up. But it was another move in the game, another attempt to control the narrative. Jason handled it the way he handled everything, with precision and without mercy. What I witnessed next was the part of him that scared me most. Not violence exactly, but the complete dismantling of someone through their own secrets and mistakes. Damien's lawyer suddenly found himself facing questions about his own past abuses. Damien's employer got wind of allegations, unfounded but persistent, about his behavior toward women. A woman came forward claiming he'd assaulted her years ago. giving a statement that was just credible enough to complicate his life. None of it was real. All of it was strategically deployed to make him understand that he was outmatched. Is he going to die? I asked Jason after the dust settled and Damien, broken and paranoid, agreed to a settlement that left him with almost nothing. No, Jason said. He's going to live. And every day he's going to know that he lost and why and to whom. That's a different kind of pain. I realized that Jason wasn't just protecting me. He was teaching Damien a lesson about what happens when you hurt people who belong to Jason Park. That night I made a decision. I didn't tell him about the internship interview. I went alone using the car Jason provided and the confidence I was slowly rebuilding. And when the community center director asked me why I wanted to work with abuse survivors, I told the truth. Because I survived, I said. And I want to help others survive too. Not just physically but mentally and emotionally. I want to teach people that they can reclaim the parts of themselves that were taken from them. I got the job. For the first time since I came into his life, Jason took me to one of his legitimate businesses. A high-end restaurant in the financial district. But before we went to the dining room, he took me to a back office. There were photographs on the walls. Some were business-related. Jason with city officials, Jason at grand openings, Jason with his business partners. But others were personal. A young woman with Jason's eyes and his smile. A photo of the woman holding a child. The photos stopped at what I guess was about 5 years ago. My sister, Jason said quietly. Her name was Minacio. That's her daughter, Haewon. Where are they now? Minacio is dead. Haewon is with our parents in Seoul. I see her maybe twice a year. I send money. It's not enough. I studied the photographs. There was a gentleness in the images, a life that was cut short. It's not your fault, I said softly. It is. I was the one with power, and I didn't protect her. He turned away from the photographs. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand what I am. I'm a man built on trying to fix the past by controlling the present. And that's dangerous, Kiana. Not for you, I would never hurt you. But it's a limitation you should know about. We had dinner in a private room overlooking the city. Jason told me more about himself. About growing up Korean in a city that wasn't always kind to Koreans. About the streets and the gangs and the business he inherited more than chose. He told me about the empire he'd built. And the blood under its foundation. Why me? I asked. Why did you respond to a text from a stranger? Because you reminded me of Minacio. And because I was given a second chance that she never got. He paused. Also, I think you're remarkable. I think you're stronger than you know, and I think you deserve to see that about yourself. That's not what this is, I said carefully. You don't actually know me. You know the version of me that was broken. No, Jason agreed. But I'm willing to wait for you to know yourself. The weeks turned into months. I established a life that existed independently of Jason, even as it existed within the infrastructure he'd created. I went to my job at the community center. I had an apartment that I paid for with my own salary. I made friends. I started applying to graduate schools for art therapy. And Jason remained at the periphery, present but not demanding. It was a strange arrangement, not quite friends, not quite romantic, something in between that I didn't have a name for. Then one evening Jason came to me with a proposition. I want to expand the community center, he said. Add more programs, more staff. And I want to do it quietly without getting the credit or recognition. I need someone to manage it, someone who understands the work and the population and actually gives a damn. I stared at him. How much money are we talking about? Does it matter? Yes. Because I know you. You don't give money without getting something in return. I'm not asking for anything you're not willing to give. I'm asking you to use your expertise and your passion to help people. That's it. But I wasn't naive anymore. I'd learned that every gift came with strings, even if those strings were just invisible. What's the real ask? I pressed. Jason was quiet for a long moment. The real ask is that you let me be part of your life in whatever way you're comfortable with. Not as your savior. Not as your keeper. Just as someone who cares what happens to you. I felt something shift inside me. Not surrender but acceptance. I couldn't pretend that Jason Park wasn't part of my story now. The question was whether I wanted him to be. I need time, I said. I know, Jason replied. Take all the time you need. The threats came in the form of rumors first. I heard them at work. Whispers about my connection to Jason Park, speculation about what I must be doing to keep him interested. Some of the women in my support groups assumed I was involved with the Mafia. A few stopped attending because they didn't trust someone who was sleeping with a gangster. I wasn't sleeping with him, but explaining that felt pointless. Then, 3 months after taking the expanded program director position, my car was followed. I noticed it immediately because Jason had taught me to notice things, the same dark sedan 3 cars back, maintaining distance. I called Jason and he picked up on the first ring. Don't go home, he said. I'm sending someone to pick you up. The men who came for me were efficient, professional. Within an hour I was back at the safe house and Jason was on the phone with Minjun, his operations manager, getting a full report. It's low-level muscle, Minjun explained. Not affiliated with anyone significant. Probably someone Damien hired. Probably. Jason's voice was cold. We'll find out. And we'll handle it. When Jason came to me, he looked tired in a way I'd never seen before. The weight of his world was suddenly visible. Damien is desperate, Jason said. He's been trying to get to you for months. This is his new move: fear, surveillance, the threat of violence. What are you going to do? The same thing I always do. Make it stop. By killing him? Jason sat on the edge of the couch, his head tilted back. I should. Logically, I should have done it months ago. It would solve the problem permanently. But I prompted. But I promised myself, I promised your sister, I promised myself that this would be different. That I wouldn't just repeat the cycle of violence. That I would do something better. He looked at me. I'm struggling with that, Kiana. I sat down beside him. For the first time, I reached for his hand without him reaching first. It was a small gesture, but it was mine. Then do better, I said. Not for me necessarily, but for you. Prove that you can. Jason's fingers tightened around mine. That's going to require you to accept a level of protection that might feel suffocating. Try me. What happened next was rapid and decisive. Jason put people on me constantly, not visibly but present. The men following me were neutralized. Damien was picked up for the violation of the protection order and sent back to jail. And Jason made sure that every person Damien tried to hire knew exactly what happened to people who went after Jason Park's people. The message was sent clearly. Kiana was protected. The price of touching her was death. It should have felt like a cage. Instead, for the first time in her adult life, I felt genuinely safe. Not just physically, but genuinely protected by someone who had both the power and the will to keep me safe. That night, I slept in Jason's bed. Not for sex, though that would come later. Just for the closeness of it. For the simple fact that I could be that vulnerable with someone and know I wouldn't pay a price for it. Thank you, I whispered. Jason, already almost asleep, pulled me closer. You don't have to thank me for keeping you alive, Kiana. That should be the minimum. No one's ever given me the minimum before, I said. Jason's arms tightened around me, and I felt him breathing, steady and real and present. And for the first time, I began to understand that maybe being saved by a monster and slowly discovering his humanity was a kind of love story too. 6 months later, I had an apartment in a building that Jason owned. It was separate from where he lived, my own space, but I spent 3 nights a week at his place and 2 at mine. The other 2 nights we didn't know. We were figuring it out. I'd graduated from the internship program and was now a full-time art therapist at the expanded community center. My name was on the building directory, and I had a client roster that grew every week. I was teaching classes in addition to one-on-one sessions. I'd begun my graduate school applications. My life was mine again. That was the central fact of it. The community center itself had transformed under my direction. What was once a small program with limited resources was now a comprehensive art therapy initiative with multiple therapists, expanding into adjacent art classes, trauma support groups, and even a small gallery space where I displayed my clients' work. Jason, true to his word, never demanded anything in return. But he came to the gallery openings. He bought his coffee from the cafe I'd helped set up. He funded expansions without putting his name on anything. He asked about my work and actually listened to the answers. We developed a kind of domestic rhythm. He slept more when I was there. I ate better. We cooked together, watched movies, and gradually built a relationship that wasn't based on crisis and dependence. But I was always aware of what he was. The business calls in the middle of the night. The men who arrived at his apartment with urgent matters. The conversations in Korean that stopped when I entered a room. The scars on his body and the way he moved through the world like someone who was always ready for violence. I'd made peace with it mostly. He'd made peace with my refusal to fully integrate into his world, mostly. We were negotiating the borders of our own private country. On a Tuesday evening, I came home from work to find Jason waiting for me with dinner prepared and a strange expression on his face. "What?" I said immediately. "Nothing bad. Just, I wanted to show you something." He took me to his office and pulled up a document on his computer. It was a deed to a building in a neighborhood I recognized, one that was gentrifying, slowly becoming safer, becoming somewhere an art therapy center could really flourish. "I bought this building," Jason said. "I'm having it renovated, and I was hoping you might want to oversee the project. Design it yourself. Make it your vision. Your name on it, your business, your legacy." I stared at the property information. It was bigger than the community center. It was an actual building with multiple floors, potential for expansion, real estate value. "That's Jason, that's millions of dollars." "It is. Why would you?" "Because I believe in what you're doing. And because I believe in you. And because I want to see you have something that's entirely yours, not something borrowed from me or anyone else." I was quiet for a long moment. "What's the catch?" "No catch. It's yours. Legally entirely yours. All I want is to know that every time you step into that building, you're stepping into something you built yourself. Not something someone gave you." I felt tears starting. After everything, after Damien, after dependence and fear and slowly rebuilding, I was being offered something that terrified me more than violence ever did. The chance to truly be free. "I'm scared," I admitted. "I know," Jason said. "But you're going to be amazing." The renovations took 4 months. I was there every day, overseeing contractors, designing spaces, imagining what my vision could look like with unlimited resources. I worked with architects and designers, creating something that was part medical facility, part art gallery, part sanctuary. Jason stayed in the background, funding and supporting but never directing. It was a careful balance he maintained, providing resources while ceding control. One evening, as we lay in bed at his apartment, Jason brought up something that had been bothering him. "I need to tell you something about the building," he said. I tensed immediately. "What?" "The neighborhood. The building is technically in territory that my business operates in, which means whether you want it or not, my name is attached to that area." "What does that mean practically?" "It means that clients might know or figure out who's funding the center. It means that the space, while entirely yours, exists within a larger context of my influence." I thought about this. I thought about it already, actually. I wasn't naive. "That's not a problem," I said. "As long as the work is mine. As long as I'm not compromised." "You won't be. But I need something in return." Here it was, I thought. The real ask. "What?" "Occasionally I might need access to the space. Not to interfere with your work, but logistically. The building has other value to me beyond your therapy center." I sat up. "You mean what?" "You want to use it for your business." "Potentially. Nothing visible. Nothing that compromises your clients or your work. But I need to know I can use it if necessary." She could say no. We both knew I could say no, and he would accept it. He'd given me that power. "I need to know specifics," I said. Jason sat up beside me. "Fair. I do import and export, legitimate and otherwise. The building, its location could be useful for logistics. That's all. No meetings, no violence, no anything that intersects with your work." "How do I know you'll keep that promise?" "You don't really. You have to trust me. Or you have to be willing to lose the building and start from scratch somewhere else." It was the most honest he'd ever been with me. The most dangerous. I thought about all the ways this could go wrong. I thought about how people with power always eventually ask for their due. I thought about the fact that nothing was ever really free. Then I thought about the fact that Jason had had every opportunity to use me and hadn't. That he'd respected my boundaries even when it cost him. That he'd proven repeatedly that he valued my independence even when it conflicted with his own interests. "I'll accept it," I said. "But I need quarterly meetings where you tell me exactly what you're using the space for. And if I ever feel like my clients are being compromised, that stops immediately." Jason smiled, and it was the most relieved I'd ever seen him. "Agreed," he said. "You're making a smart choice." "I'm making a terrible choice," I corrected. "But I'm making it with my eyes open. That's what matters." The opening of the center was 3 months later. I had named it Reclamation. A small deliberate statement about what art and healing could do. The space was beautiful. Natural light, exposed wood, flexible rooms that could transform based on what the center needed. And despite my fears, despite Jason's presence in the architecture of the space, the center became a real refuge. My clients healed. They created. They reclaimed pieces of themselves. I trained more therapists. I expanded the program. And slowly, I stopped being afraid that I was compromised by Jason's involvement. Because the truth was, I wasn't. I was collaborating with someone powerful, someone dangerous, someone who loved me in a way that was complicated and conditional and real. And in exchange, I got resources and protection and a kind of partnership. It wasn't the fairy tale romance I once dreamed of. It was something stranger and more honest. One evening, at a gallery showing of my client's artwork, Jason appeared with his mother. She was visiting from Seoul, a small, elegant Korean woman with kind eyes and a direct gaze. "This is what you do," she said to me in careful English. "This help people." "Yes," I said nervously. Mrs. Park studied one of the paintings, a landscape done by a woman who survived human trafficking, full of light and color and overwhelming hope. "This is good," she said finally. "This is very good." Jason finally finds someone who see him right. Not afraid, not impressed, just see him. After they left, I felt something settle inside me. Jason's mother's approval shouldn't have mattered, but somehow it did. That night, we went home together to Jason's apartment. And for the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a future where this was permanent. The threats came from Jason's world, not Damien's. I got a call from my security team, the men Jason put in place, that there had been suspicious individuals asking questions about me at the community center. Nothing overt, nothing dangerous, but questions. Who was I? Where did I live? What was my relationship to Jason Park? It was enough to send a spike of ice through my blood. Who is it? I demanded of Jason that night. A rival group. Not serious, probably just testing boundaries. But it's a reminder of the fact that being close to me comes with vulnerabilities. You promised. I promised I wouldn't hurt you. I didn't promise I could completely isolate you from the consequences of knowing me. The old fear rose up in me, the familiar panic that I'd made a terrible mistake, that I'd traded one predator for another, that safety with Jason would always come at the price of autonomy. I had a panic attack, then another one. I started going to therapy not as a provider but as a patient. I told my therapist about Damien, about Jason, about the complicated tangle of rescue and love and danger. "Do you feel controlled?" my therapist asked gently. I thought about this. "No, but I feel entangled. Like my safety is dependent on someone else's power. Like if I tried to leave, there would be consequences." Would there be? I don't know. Maybe. Probably not from Jason, but from the people he's made enemies. That's a real problem, my therapist agreed. Not because Jason is abusive, but because the structure of your relationship inherently requires you to depend on his protection in ways that limit your actual freedom. I realized sitting in that office that my therapist was right. I could paint. I could work. I could have my own space and my own business. But I could never actually leave Jason without understanding that I'd be vulnerable to his enemies in ways I wouldn't be if I were just Kiana Lee, art therapist. I brought this up with Jason that night, and he didn't try to argue with me. "You're right," he said. "This structure inherently favors me. And the only way to fix that is for you to be willing to live with the risk." "What if I'm not?" "Then you need to leave. And I need to remove all the protections I've put in place, so that you're not visibly associated with me. It would hurt losing you, but I'd do it." I stared at him. "You'd actually let me go?" "Yes. Because I do love you, Kiana, and love means sometimes letting go of what you want for what the other person needs." She realized that this was the moment The moment where I chose. Where I decided whether to try to build a life with Jason despite the complications, or whether to walk away and reclaim the kind of independence that didn't require someone else's power to maintain. It was 2 a.m., and I was sitting in Jason's apartment in a t-shirt and underwear, and I was being asked to make one of the most important decisions of my life. I don't want to leave, I said finally, but I don't want to be passive about my own protection either. I need to be able to protect myself. Then let me teach you, Jason said. Let me teach you self-defense, awareness, how to navigate this world safely. Not as a woman under my protection, but as a woman who can stand beside me. Over the next 3 months I learned how to fight. I trained with Jason's men, learning martial arts and weapons handling and situational awareness. I learned how to track money, how to understand the criminal world I'd inadvertently entered, how to protect my own interests. And slowly I felt the balance shift. I was still with Jason, but I was with him as a partner now, not a dependent. Damien resurfaced 8 months later. Not physically. He was smart enough to know that violating the protection order would send him directly to prison. But digitally. A fake email address, threatening messages, stalker behavior that walked the legal line without quite crossing it. I know where you work. I know where you live. You can't hide behind him forever. I brought the messages to Jason, and I could see the rage flash across his face before he controlled it. I'll handle it, he said. No, I said. We'll handle it together. Jason started to protest, but I cut him off. I've trained. I've learned. I'm not helpless anymore. So we do this together or we don't do it at all. Jason nodded slowly. Okay. Then here's what we do. We set a trap. Simple and elegant. We used my email to set up a meeting, claiming I was willing to negotiate. Not with Damien himself but with his lawyer in a public place with me and Jason both present. Damien took the bait. What happened next was the real test. Damien arrived at the coffee shop with his lawyer, certain that he had leverage, certain that I would either refuse to fight or would crack under pressure. He didn't account for the fact that I'd spent months healing and training. He didn't account for the possibility that I'd stand up to him with a clarity that came from having survived him. These messages stop, I said, my voice steady. All of them. You don't contact me. You don't try to find me. You don't follow me. You don't speak my name. You disappear from my life completely. Damien laughed. Or what? Your boyfriend will kill me. No, I said. Because if Jason kills you, then I'm entangled in it forever. And I'm done being entangled. But if you keep this up, I'm going to press charges for stalking and harassment. I'm going to show a judge every message, every attempt at contact. And I'm going to watch you go to prison. Again. And this time I won't feel guilty about it. I stood up. Jason stood with me, but I put a hand on his chest, a clear signal that this was my moment. You don't scare me anymore, I said to Damien. And that's what you've always needed. Someone to be scared of you. So this is where it ends. For you. Choose to let it go or choose prison. But either way I'm done. I turned and walked out and Jason followed me. In the car Jason reached for my hand. I let him take it, but I didn't wait for him to validate me. I didn't need him to anymore. That was the hardest thing you've done, he said quietly. No, I corrected. The hardest thing I did was leave him the first time. Everything else has been practice. 6 months later, my name appeared in a journal article about innovative art therapy techniques for trauma survivors. The article was respected and peer-reviewed and, most importantly, mine. My work. My research. My contribution to the field. I'd also been accepted into 3 graduate programs. I chose the one at the local university because it allowed me to continue running reclamation while completing my degree. Life had taken on a rhythm I hadn't known was possible. I worked. I studied. I created. I healed others and continued to heal myself. And Jason remained a consistent presence, but no longer the primary presence. I spent 3 nights a week at his apartment, usually when he had business to attend to. He spent 1 night a week at my place. The other nights we texted but didn't see each other. It was a structure that worked for both of us. He'd asked me to move in. I declined. Not because I didn't love him, I did in a way that was complicated and real, but because I needed to maintain my own space. My own sanctuary. My own life that didn't revolve around him or his world. He'd accepted this, though I knew it cost him. One evening, I hosted the first group show at Reclamation. It was a display of work from my clients, paintings and sculptures and mixed media art, that told the stories of survival. People came. Mental health professionals came. Local journalists came. And Jason came, sitting in the back, watching me move through the space with confidence and authority. Afterward, he found me in my office. "Your mother called me yesterday," he said. "She said she saw the article about your work in a journal." She cried. I felt something warm bloom in my chest. My mother, who I'd been sure had written me off years ago, had been quietly watching my progress, quietly proud. "I'm going to take her to dinner," I said. "I want her to see what I've built." "Will that be weird?" "It might be," Jason admitted. "But you're allowed to have a life that includes your family and doesn't include me. I want it to include you. Just not primarily. Does that make sense?" "Yes," Jason said. "It makes perfect sense." We stood together in my office, the office of a woman who no longer defined herself by what was done to her, but by what she'd chosen to create. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For responding to a text from a stranger. For saving my life but then letting me live it. For being honest about who you are and what you want and what it costs. For respecting my boundaries even when they're inconvenient for you." Jason stepped closer, and I let him pull me into an embrace. "You saved yourself," he said. "I just didn't stop you. That's all I've ever done." A year later, I was standing in the Reclamation Gallery, looking at an exhibition of my own work alongside my graduate thesis. The paintings told a story without needing words. They showed a woman coming apart and then slowly, deliberately reassembling herself. They showed fear and then defiance. They showed the moment when survival becomes living. The gallery was packed for the opening. My mother was there, standing beside Jason, the two of them examining a particular painting of a broken arm healing, a literal and metaphorical journey rendered in oils and acrylics. My graduate advisor was there. Several of my clients were there, seeing their therapist's own healing journey laid bare. And Jason was there in the background as always, watching me shine. This was what it looked like when you survived not just the violence but the aftermath. When you didn't just escape but built something. When you didn't just live but chose how to live. I walked into a locked bathroom with a broken arm and a text to a stranger. I walked out with a life that was entirely my own. The journey in between was complex and painful, and sometimes beautiful. And I'd do it all again just to arrive at this moment. Standing in a gallery that bears my name, looking at work that speaks my truth, surrounded by people I'd chosen and people who'd chosen me. That's the real rescue story. Not the moment someone saves you, but the moment you save yourself. You've watched Kiana refuse to stay small. You've watched her survive not just violence, but the aftermath of violence, the doubt, the fear, the complicated love that comes from being saved by someone dangerous. And you've watched her choose herself again and again and again. If you've ever felt trapped behind a closed door, if you've ever questioned whether survival was enough, or if you could actually build a life worth living, Kiana's story is your reminder. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to be complicated. You are allowed to love people and still maintain your independence. You are allowed to heal. This is only the beginning of stories like these. Subscribe to follow more journeys of survival, power, and reclamation. Because every person deserves the chance to become the author of their own story.